have the leg, there's two of them. The legs touch the right angle. Oh, that's rough. Right here. So they're adjacent to the right angle. You have the hypotenuse, which is directly across them in the right angle. Right there. This is always C. A and B are interchangeable, the other two sides. Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We've used it a lot. I hope we know it. So the leg squared plus the other leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. C is always the longest side, your hypotenuse. All right. A reminder for you before we get started on these today. We simplified radicals yesterday because during this unit, you cannot put your answer as a decimal unless the side lengths are already decimals to begin with. So pretty much every single time, I'm going to expect you to put it in simplest radical form. If I don't say, it is safe to assume that that's what I expect of you. So please do not take square roots and give me decimal answers today or here on out, because we know how to simplify. Let's do example 1. I would always write down Pythagorean theorem first and mark whichever side is C, because A and B, it doesn't really matter. You're going to see me, where'd it go? You're going to see me draw an arrow across the right angle and write C. The other two are A and B. Doesn't matter. So let's substitute into the equation. We've done this a lot of times. So we'll put 7 for A, 24 for B. And you can either leave C as C or you can put it as X. I do not care. You can use your chart from yesterday to look at the squareds. 7 squared, I hope we have memorized. It is what? 49. 24 is a good one to memorize because it comes up a lot. 24 squared is 576. Add these up. Then we take the square root to get rid of the square root. Can you please solve for the hypotenuse? Do we take the square root of both sides? What's the square root of 625? It's 25. So if you get a whole number answer, then you don't need to obviously simplify the square root because that is it simplified. Square root of 625 is 25. So that's okay. That's the hypotenuse. We've done that a million times. Solving for the leg we have not really done so far this year. So let's talk about that. Same thing you're going to see me do every time. You will see me draw an arrow across in the right angle, so I know that this side is C. You guys talk appropriate times. Write down Pythagorean theorem and plug in what you know. If you want to label A and B, you could put A is 8, B is going to be this one. So put 8 squared plus B squared equals C squared. Not C squared, 16 squared. Go ahead and figure out what's 8 squared, what's 16 squared. Rewrite. It went away. Look at your beautiful faces. So I have 64 plus b squared equals 276. 256, sorry. Okay, you cannot take the square root right now. The first thing you have to do is get rid of the 64. How do I get rid of it? Subtract it. That way you get b squared isolated. So you have to subtract. When you're solving for a leg, you have to subtract the side first. So we get b squared is equal to 192. And then you got to take the square root of that. This is what we're talking about. You cannot get your answer as a decimal. If you take the square root of 192, you will get a decimal. Do not put your answer as a decimal. You need to simplify that square root. So if you have that chart from yesterday, you go through the list, divide by, there's also a chart on the board over there of perfect squares, right behind Hayden. Divide by 4, 9, 16, etc. Try and find the largest perfect square that 192 can divide by. Please figure that out now. I need the largest perfect square that 192 can divide by. Because you cannot put your answer as a decimal. Yeah, I should have extra copies in that pink bin back there. Hopefully, if I don't, then they're somewhere else. Do we find it? Yeah, so it divides by several, but 64 would be the highest. So I would put, this is 64 times 3. Or you can split up those two square roots. Square root of 64 times the square root of 3. So your final answer needs to be in simplest radical form, 8 root 3. Like that. That is your final answer. Find it. Oops. Yeah, that's it. Moving on, so you have a couple of problems like this on your assignment. Finding the area of the isosceles triangle. Let's draw a picture because you're in geometry class and that's what you should do anytime you don't have one. It says your side lengths are 16, 17, and 17. So your congruent sides are 17 and your base is 16. So this whole side down here is 16. To find area of a triangle, we do base times height divided by 2. Problem is right now you don't have the height, you just have the base. So you are going to have to solve for the height, h. This is an isosceles triangle. The base is 16. What are these two? 8. So we need to solve for h. C is the side across from the right angle, so 17 is C. Go ahead and solve for the height. I'll put 8 squared plus h squared equals 17 squared. And then I need you to solve for the height. believe we should get 15. The question asks you to find the area. So you need to plug in for your area now. The base is 16. The height is 15. And then divide by 2. What is my area? What do we get? 120. Look at your units. We're in meters. Meters squared. All right. The back side of this should be pretty quick because we're talking about Pythagorean triples. And these are pretty awesome because if you can memorize the ones that are in bold at the top, then it makes it a lot faster to solve because you don't actually have to solve. If you can memorize 3, 4, 5, 5, 12, 13, 8, 15, 17, and 7, 24, and 25 at least, these come up a ton, and so you don't actually have to solve. You can just figure out what the missing side is and get your answer. So and I'll point this out. You can also use their multiples. So for example, if I do 5, 12, 13 times 2, I get 10, 24, and 26. So if I can memorize the basic ones, then any multiples of that work, which is great. So on these next examples, it says that these are two sides of the right triangle. The three sides together make a Pythagorean triple. Find the length of the third side and tell whether it's a leg or a hypotenuse. So 3 is not a side, just so we're clear. That's the problem. You have 24 and 51. Please look at the list at the top. These make a Pythagorean triple. Jacob, what's the third side? 45. You see it right here. It's under 5, 12, no, 8, 15, 17. If you take 8, 15, 17 times 3, you get 24, 45, 51. So is 45 going to be a leg or hypotenuse? Leg. It is not the longest side. Okay, and then 20 and 48. You can scan through the list, you see it. Okay, but remember you can also use multiples of the basic ones. So which of those could you multiply to get 20 and 48? You can't multiply 3 to get 20. 5, 12, 13. 5 times 4 is 20. 12 times 4 is 48. So that's the one you want. So we're going to use 5, 5, 12, 13. Whoa. 5 times 4 is 20. 12 times 4 is 48. So you're going to do 13 times 4 to get your other side. So what would my third side be? Sam, what you got?
52.
52. This would have to be a hypotenuse because it is the longest side out of 24 and 48. So it's nice because you don't actually have to solve. You can just look at the list or think about your multiples and try and get your answer without actually solving, which is great. Okay, when you're ready, we're going to talk about the converse. If you can get Pythagorean theorem to work, then the triangle is a right triangle. Please remember that C is the longest side. You've got A, B, touching the right angle. C is across from that. Cool. We're going to do one example together. You're going to do the next one on your own. If you want to add C is the longest side, that's a good reminder. All right. We're doing A together. This has to be C, because it's the one that's across from what would be the right angle. It's the longest side right now. 3 root 13 is longer than 6 and 9. We're going to plug into Pythagorean theorem. So we want to know, is 6 squared plus 9 squared equal to 3 root 13 squared? And I'll put a question mark above the equal sign because you don't actually know right now that it is. These ones we should have memorized. What's 6 squared?
36.
Thank you. What is 9 squared?
81.
Okay. Now, this is power to power, if you remember rules of exponents. So this actually is 3 squared times root 13 squared. What's nice about this is that the squared and the square root actually cancel out. So you are left with 3 squared is 9 times 13. So now you just have to find out, does the left side equal the right side? Go ahead and do the addition on the left and the multiplication on the right. (36 plus 81 is 117. What is 9 times 13? 117. Yes, it works. So those sides, a squared plus b squared does equal c squared. Yes, it is a right triangle. Can you please do the next one? You can work with your partner. I have a little song for you today after this.